and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. This evening, we are going to be turning the spotlight on Linden because tomorrow there is going to be a demonstration in that town. And so we thought that tonight, in preparation for that demonstration, we'll turn the spotlight on that community. Linden, of course, is a special place. Walter Rodney once described it as the cradle of the Guyanese working class. And of course, he was making reference to the fact that Linden is known as the bauxite town. And the old Marxists would talk about the industrial working class. And Linden, of course, was part of the bauxite industry. But others have spoken about the independence of that community, in a sense, representing the coming together of the various communities on the coast, because most Lindeners can trace their ancestry, their familial ties back to the coastal villages currently in West Bobis, the east coast of Demerara in particular. And of course, Linden at one time had a sizable Indian Guyanese population and still does have an Indian Guyanese population. There are Amerindians there. A microcosm of what Guyana is, one can say about Linden. And I made reference earlier to the independence of the people, the political independence, in the sense that Linden moves to its own rhythm. Linden has had conflicts with leaders, conflicts with Forbes Burnham back in the late 60s and early 70s on the question of what to do with the bauxite industry, and as they were changing hands in 1970, and there were some big strikes in Linden. You come right through to David Granger. The people of Linden love their leaders, but they're also an independent people who question their leaders. One remembers the protests, the resistance movement of 2012, as that community resisted the PPP government of the day, trying to take away the electricity subsidies. And the people of Linden argued that that electricity was more than a subsidy. It was their merit for the long years of toiling in that bauxite industry. And they took to the streets, and for many, many weeks, they stood there, men, women, children, and sadly, the state under the PPP government turned its guns on those demonstrators, killing 3 men and injuring others. But what people may not remember about that is that the coalition leaders at the time were ambivalent, to say the least, about the issue. And the Lindeners, independent of their party, led that struggle. Give that introduction to answer those who are saying, well, why the spotlight on Linden? Why the spotlight on Linden? I think every community is special in any country, in Guyana, every single community is special. But there are some communities by their very history that stands out. And Linden is one of those communities. One can make bold to say that at one time, Linden kept Guyana alive. It was the wealth from bauxite that, in a sense, helped to carry the Guyanese economy in the 1970s. 1980s, as sugar was beginning to decline, it was bauxite that carried the economy. The economy of Guyana, bauxite played an important role. At the same time, bauxite, calcined bauxite, was playing an important role in carrying the Jamaican economy and the Surinamese economy. Those three countries of the Caribbean were producing a majority of the world's bauxite. And so Linden was part in those days of the global economy where there was demand for bauxite. So tonight, on the eve of the protest tomorrow, we want to find out what's happening in Linden. We saw a couple of weeks ago, the Lindeners took to the streets in support of the nurses who had come up against the COVID-19 vaccine mandates from the government. And the community came out in solidarity. They came out in solidarity with those nurses and signaled to the government that they're ready. They went back to that bridge and they stood on that bridge until there was a negotiated ceasefire, if you will, between the leaders of the community and the police. And that protest and others around the country at the time forced the government to pull back and to say they are giving people 2 weeks in order to ensure that they take the vaccine. My own reading at that time was that the government was giving itself 2 weeks to figure out what's going on. It wasn't giving the people 2 weeks. The people knew what they were saying. And the government needed time to figure out what to do. There were protests in Guyana, in Antigua, in Barbados. In Antigua, the government turned the guns on the people, tear gas. In Barbados, 2,000 Bajans took to the streets. The Barbadian Prime Minister, after being very aggressive, pulled back and started to reason with our people. In St. Vincent, unfortunately, a member of the audience threw a stone at the Prime Minister, who was injured. But there too, they were coming down against the mandates. Often in politics, something becomes the occasion for something. For 1 year, this government trampled on the rights of the people. They turned their guns on the people of West Berbice. They threatened the leaders. They lock up and charge a number of opposition leaders. Workers at GCOM fired hundreds of African Guyanese perceived leaders public servants. And the Attorney General went to New York and boasted that they were not getting any opposition from the people of Guyana, and they were begging to be opposed. He was, of course, poking fun at the fact that people had not aggressively demonstrated against the ills. And then, as it happened, they felt that they could, without any consultation, without any education program, they could impose on a hesitant population vaccine mandates. And the opposition that they asked for, they began to get. Not just opposition to their mandates, but opposition to their dictatorial rule, opposition to economic violence, opposition to the high cost of living. They would like to pigeonhole these demonstrations as anti-vaccine demonstrations. But my own reading is that people are using the occasion of the vaccine mandates to manage the government. And that is why they pull back for 2 weeks. And we shall see. So we're going to talk tonight about Linden. We're going to talk with 3 people who are hailed as leaders in that community. Sharma Solomon, who was one of the principal leaders of the 2012 uprising. Vanessa Kissoon, former member of parliament, also a co-leader of that uprising with Sharma Solomon, who himself served as the regional chairman. And I once described them, because I would frequent the demonstrations, I once described them as political rock stars, because I think I knew something about the response of people to leaders. And I would go there daily and I would see the response of the people of Linden to these 2 young people. And it reminded me of a particular period in our history, and that very Linden, and their response to another young man 30 years before. And I'm talking about Walter Rodney. And my third guest is Drummond Figueira, of recent vintage, a product of the APNU AFC upsurge, and he's now a member of parliament. He's chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, so he has risen through the ranks. And I, 2 years ago, yes, 2 years ago, I was invited to participate in the emancipation celebrations at Linden. And I had the pleasure of spending a couple of hours along with Aubrey Norton, and I remember a couple of other people, to talk to the young man. And I found him to be quite inquisitive. The questions he asked and so forth. So we have these 3 young people on tonight, and we're going to talk to them about Linden. Lady, gentlemen, sister, brothers, welcome.
Thank you.
Jermaine, let me start with you. Update us about tomorrow. What's happening tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow there's a people's resistance to the government's dictatorial approach to impose mandatory vaccination, forced vaccination on the people of Region 10. And the community would have decided to organize a march And we believe it will be a very large contingent of Lindeners, residents of Region 10 coming out to lend support to this march to demonstrate and to state very pellucid, very clearly to this administration that the people of Region 10, the people of Linden, have total sovereignty over their bodies, and they will make the determination whether they want to accept the vaccine or whether they want to reject it. We do not hold the view that government should hold the position to give dictates to residents, to citizens of this country, that they should take a vaccine if they refuse to. And that is why the community is standing against this dictatorial approach of this administration. But I must make it very clear, Dr. Hines, is that we are not in opposition to vaccination. What we are in opposition to is the government's dictatorial position to force vaccine on the residents. And those residents, those citizens who refuse to take it, taxpayers' residents, they are saying they cannot have access to government services. They're saying to them that they can't have the ability to earn because there's a lot of public servants who are being told that if they do not take this vaccine, they cannot go to work. These are residents who are self-employed, taxi drivers, transportation providers. You're saying to those residents who are paying the state their taxes, you're saying to them they do not have the right to earn, to provide for their families, to pay their bills if they choose not to take this vaccine. And we hold a very fundamental position as residents of this community. And we are prepared to stand resolute to defend our rights, to have sovereignty of choice over our own bodies. And that is why the community...
Jamin,
Yes.
let me stop you for a minute, and I want you to repeat, because you said there that you all are not against vaccine, but you all are against the mandates. And the reason I want you to repeat that, it's for two reasons. I want you to clarify it for our own supporters,
Yes.
who sometimes give the impression that they're against vaccines, when in fact, what we are collectively against is the mandates. Because I'm going to play a clip from the leader of the PPP, Mr. Jagdeo, in which he accuses me, David Hines, of telling people not to take the vaccine. And he says when the people die, David Hines will not be there. And I know that the PPP is planning to blame us for every COVID death that will occur from now. So it is very important for us to be very clear that we are not against vaccines as a cure. There may be some people in the community who are, but as leaders, we are not mobilizing people against vaccines, but against the government mandate. So for our supporters and for the PPP, which is planning to pin COVID deaths on us opposition leaders, I want you to repeat that. Let's play what Mr. Jagdeo said, and then I'll come back to you, Jamin.
And a lot of people now are using the vaccines to stir up other trouble. I saw David Hines saying we must undermine this government at every chance, using a vaccine protest to say to people who are being vaccinated, who we want vaccinated, preying on some ignorance there, to tell them they must use that to undermine us. Who are they undermining? They're undermining themselves. Because when they end up in hospital, it's the state responsibility, first of all, but they will die. And David Hines will not be there.
In politics, we say things are often the occasion for other things. And I do not think that the issue is about vaccination or not to take the vaccination. Because, COVID is a public health issue. And I think people are rational and sensible enough to understand that a public health issue around a disease that is contagious can't be about choice. Now, choice is a word that is associated, a term that's associated with the anti-abortion, not the anti-abortion, the pro-abortion advocates in the United States. See, if a woman has an abortion, it's her body, and what she does, if there are consequences, the consequences are confined to her, physically at least. So there you have it. Mr. Jackson knows that I am pro-vaccine. I've said that to our supporters. Yet he says that I was addressing a vaccine protest at Victoria, but it wasn't a vaccine protest. It was an anti-dictatorial protest, anti-dictatorship protest. And then he says that when the people die, I would be responsible, right? So the PPP is skillfully trying to use our opposition to the mandates to say we are opposed to the vaccine. Thank God we have the records there to show that I have been very clear that I am not against vaccine, I'm against mandate. But I want you to repeat what you said for our audience and supporters and for the PPP. Unmute yourself. Yeah.
Let me try to be very clear, very pellucid as possible. We in this community are not in opposition to the vaccine. We are not anti-vaccination. We actually tell people if they want to go and take the vaccine, go right ahead. But the same right persons may have to go and take it. We also hold the view that other residents who refuse to take it, that right should also be bestowed upon them. Now, the government is saying that such a right shouldn't be afforded to residents and citizens of this country. And we believe it's an infringement on people's human rights. We believe it's an infringement on individuals' sovereignty over their bodies. Now, a lot of persons have fundamental reasons, fundamental beliefs, and some of them genuinely have health-related issues as a result of them not wanting to go and take these vaccines. A number of persons, a number of citizens have very legitimate concerns with respect to a lot of unanswered questions concerning many of the vaccines that are out as the remedy for reducing the spread of COVID. But that in itself is problematic, Dr. Hines, because the vaccine do not prevent persons from spreading the vaccine. So that in itself causes even more issues and concerns for the citizens. Because
yes, and we're going to come back to that, Jermaine. I just wanted you to emphasize, I want to emphasize so that we don't give them the excuse to do what Jack has begun to do there. So let me bring in Vanessa and Sharma on this issue. Sharma, give us your take on what you perceive the community to be saying in relation to this issue of the vaccine.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Hines, and to the other guests. It's a pleasure to be on your program. Let me also take the opportunity to extend to the audience the pleasure to be on again on your program. I think what you're seeing from the community, and I think not only Linden, but other communities across Guyana would be evident of not isolated to the uh, handling of the vaccine per se, but in the overall management of what we have as a pandemic. And it goes right back to the issue of planning in terms of what we've seen as handling of this matter. And we'll come to some of the hypocrisy in some of the statements made and even the actions by the government with regards to their handling of this crisis and the pandemic. What you're seeing in communities, in particular Linden, as you have recognized, doesn't require, and I think you painted an ideal perspective of the historical reference of Linden in regards to how they view topical issues, doesn't necessarily only require the political vices. One must recall, and I think the program tonight is short of the presence of a Nigel London. One must recall that it would have been independent views of individuals who have expressed their concerns of the general handling. So what you have would be people who recognize the structure to begin with of the government's position on this entire pandemic handling. To begin with, is one where you see the establishment, for example, of the COVID task force. It is lacking of a stakeholder involvement that would have brought about the sort of consultations, would have brought about the sort of input that would have taken on, for example, decisions that are being made right now that pose more concerns, take away confidence from handling of the matter to citizens, rather than promoting issues like you're saying. Some people are not against the vaccine. However, the handling. So let's take, for example, how it was imposed on Linden. You actually had a government that was prepared to put forward a orchestrated public health crisis by denying nurses, doctors, and patients out of the hospital who were there the day before without the vaccine. There was no handling of a matter that recognized, even to that extent, the sort of danger they were putting people's lives in. And we saw that sort of imposition being without consideration, in particular in Linden. Because whereas other parts of the country, people, after this very without thought and consideration move was made, after other parts of the country moved against it, Linden for 3 days, our nurses, our entire healthcare system was paralyzed by an orchestrated effort to force people into a certain direction. You're talking about threats to people's lives. That was as reckless as it became. And I think when you see actions like that, a community is left with little choice, very little choice, as you saw repeated over the days, except to take the sort of action that you saw. And added to that, it shows that even with a phone call, that decision could have been reversed, as you said, for 2 weeks, which means it was absolutely unnecessary to endanger an entire community by putting their public health institutions at risk because of an imposition where you hadn't considered how you handle this matter. Added to that, you hear the claims being made about the increase in the numbers of cases. COVID is real. COVID is real. I am not against the vaccine. I am somebody who have said to people, if they are certain that they're encouraged by what they have as information on the vaccine, and take the vaccine. It works to reduce people from having serious cases and even reduces deaths. But then think about what this government is saying. In July, this community demonstrated just about 200 plus cases of COVID matters, Region 10. As of today in August, we have about 50 to 60 plus cases in August. You know what were the activities in July while the government is being hypocritical? We had the COVID cash grant. We had the We Care program. We had 400 people being given house lots by the same government. Like we saw on Sunday, almost 600 people in the quarantine receiving cash handouts. The convenience to say who are the ones endangering the lives to bring people at assembly point, I think the government needs to first check the way they are handling many of these matters. We are having hundreds of people at any given time. You had teachers who were asked to participate in the cash grant contribution to schools, and now those same teachers are being told that after that program they could have assembled in numbers, they now have to produce vaccination cards before they go back to school. And I think that sort of handling of this pandemic is what is bringing about people's resistance to the sort of mismanagement and also to the sort of handling that doesn't work in the interest of people with regards to their rights and their civil liberties. So you're not only seeing people resistance, you're seeing people taking action because of what this government in response to handling this crisis is. You have to unmute, Doc.
Shama Solomon there. I'm sorry about that. Let me bring in Vanessa Kisoon, school teacher, political activist, and a community leader in Linden. Vanessa, what are you hearing on this matter of the vaccine from the people in Linden?
Okay, first let me say Almighty God is great. Good night to you, Dr. Hines, Mr. Solomon, Mr. Figuera, and also your wonderful audience, the listening audience, the persons viewing. Tonight I want to remind us of that quote by the great Nelson Mandela. And he said, education is the most powerful weapon that we can use, or which we can use to change the world, unquote. And I want to remind us that as a people, it's education, not arrogance and bullyism, that is going to change people's minds. It is education. And one of the things that we're experiencing on the ground, Dr. Hines, persons have a lot of concerns. Persons are not, they don't feel well informed. We don't feel fully educated. So we have a lot of unanswered questions. We have persons who have all sorts of medical concerns, backgrounds. Take, for instance, when you go to access this vaccine, you're being asked questions. We're not a people in this country, in our community, where many of us, we don't have doctors, family doctors. We don't go every 6 months or every year for checkup. Some of us, we are not aware of what our family illnesses are, but those that are hereditary that can be passed down. We are not aware of what, diseases we might have. Because if you notice, persons who would have taken the first shot, we have cases reported where persons died after taking both shots, and they're saying that those persons had underlying issues. Now, how do people know that they have underlying issues? What is out there? What is set out? What system is set out to ensure that persons' medical status at this present time, is known? Persons are not aware of what is happening. Some people suffer from hypertension, they're probably not even sure. Some people might be sickle cell carriers, full-blown sicklers. Some may know, full-blown, you may know. But persons have a lot of unanswered questions. The other thing is, and I find that, I think Mr. Solomon alluded to that point, where we're being told avoid large crowds, avoid all these things, yet we see the government coming into our communities, encouraging large crowds, large gatherings, and apparently it's only okay when the government encourage, or when the government has an activity that requires large crowds, then it's accepted. So persons on the ground, we have a lot of concerns. Like Mr. Solomon alluded to the situation with the Because We Care cash grant. And I can say to you, as a teacher who worked that with, yes, it was announced that all COVID-19 protocols would be observed, but we know that that did not happen. All right. And so when the government is going to go out there and try to say to us that, we must take this vaccine, and like Mr. Figueroa said, it's not that we're against the vaccines. And in my situation, we are concerned because I know personally of persons who are, and this is, I'm talking not just off my head, I'm telling you what I know, that we know persons who've been fully vaccinated that contracted the virus, and so these things, people have concerns. And I didn't listen to the entire presentation of the Prime Minister of Barbados. But if you notice, one of the things that she's encouraging is education. Let's go meet our people. Let's talk to them. What are your concerns? You understand? People have all sorts of concerns and in their minds. And at the end of the day, I'm wondering, why is it this vaccination, this mandatory vaccine, why didn't we have the same attitude towards the filaria tablets? Why is it the filaria tablet distribution persons refused and it was okay? I don't know if you recall that, Dr. Hines. We had persons who did not take the filaria pills despite all the messaging that went out, how important it is. We had persons that didn't take it, but they were not told they can't go to work. They're not being told that, you can't come into this building or that sort of thing. So people have concerns. And I think what we need to do is to educate people. We need to ensure that people's curiosities, people's unanswered questions are answered. And so people will be able to.
One of the demands of the march tomorrow, and you're quite right, Vanessa, we have argued strenuously that there are some measures that need to be taken, that vaccine mandates must be an absolute last resort.
Exactly.
If things get really out of hand. Before that, you can bring the opposition and civil society onto the task force so that it becomes representative. You do more vigorous education of people, because our people are out there going on the internet and pulling down all kinds of information. You can't blame them. The government has to have expert education to answer these people's questions, and they have not been doing that. You give a $20,000, $25,000 cash grant. A woman at Victoria, she came out because she heard I was there, and she said she wanted me to say to the public this. Why did they not say the COVID relief was mandatory?
Exactly.
They're saying taking the COVID vaccine is mandatory, but to share the money, they're not saying that is mandatory. In fact, they're going and they're denying people leaving pink slips and so forth. So she pointed out the hypocrisy, the double standards that Sharma was talking about. My point is, look, Give people $100,000 and reason with them and use that as a leverage to educate them and to get them. There's so many things that you can use in order to get people to an understanding and parlay their fears. You made reference to screening. Anytime you go to a doctor, they give you a whole big set of papers to fill out. And what medication you're taking, what ailment you have. And
What are you allergic to?
that. That's right. You have to apply that here. So my argument is that the government has dropped the ball and it wants to use authoritarian measures to cover up its mismanagement. And I want us to make that argument so that when they come to pin the COVID deaths, it must be pinned on them and not us. As leaders, sometimes we have to suppress our own personal feelings and think about the community. I don't have to tell you all that about Linden, but I think we are at a critical moment. And as I said, they are gearing up to say that we are telling people not to take the vaccine because according to them, our people are mentally retarded. I'm going to ask my operator to play a clip by a famous man who said that the supporters of the opposition are mentally retarded. Recall a few months ago when Amansa Desir was giving her analysis, she used the term mentally lazy, and they lynched her. And now a famous man is saying opposition supporters are mentally lazy. You heard it here on Politics 101. We listen to that famous man and comment on the other side.
You have to test people's basically tolerance, their patience, and basically whether they're mentally retarded to tell people in this country that they won the elections. Any person who believes that in the face of all the evidence, in the face of the entire international community saying otherwise, in the face of the fact that the SOPs that Lowenfield had and that the PPP had and everyone had showed that the PPP won, but their SOPs never surfaced so far. They can't be made public because Harman is sitting on them like in a nest waiting for them to hatch little eggs, can't get them out before time or else they would spoil. Like when you sit on eggs. So that's where the SOPs are. So any person, they're doing documentaries, etc., that would believe that they won the election has to be delusional or mentally retarded. Mentally retarded because it means they can't think for themselves, they can't read and understand. They're not curious. They listen to stupidity.
Dr. John.
There you have it. Mr. Jack Dio, the famous man himself. Jermaine, your thoughts on what you just heard? Unmute. Yes.
Well, Jack Dio is known to be pathologically mendacious. And he believes that the Guyanese populace forgets. So you have to be rapidly engaged in the affairs of the country with respect to what is going on and what Jack Dio has to say. And then you pull footages just like what you would have done to remind the populace that this is a very habitual liar as a leader. So you cannot take Jack Dio by his word. And that is something the population must come to the consciousness of accepting that Jagios speaks with a forked tongue, and that is what the Guyanese people need to pay rapid attention to. Because today he says one thing, tomorrow he says something else. He's never consistent because a liar has to have a very good memory, and apparently he doesn't have that. That is why his lies is caught up with him when footages of what you would have just shared with the audience remind us of how pathologically mendacious Barjadio is. So you don't take him for his word.
Mr. Jagger? Sharma?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me properly.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, I think as I made the point earlier about um, the first clip that you showed with regards to the vice president's claim, first about those who are causing public mischief with regards to um, the handling of the pandemic. I think it's important to recognize, again, I go right back to that. Governments around the world are being held accountable to the point where um, governments are losing their seat of power because of this. This is a serious matter. And when you can have somebody who demonstrates to you that, um, first of all, their intent of where they stand on the issue of the pandemic with regards to ensuring the people are taken care of. So think about the handling of the uh, COVID guidelines and the enforcement of those guidelines that are solely within the provision of the government and how it's being handled. Those things are being handled, and people across the country are recognized. It's with favors, it's with people who know people, you know. But yet, still, the average man in the street, the average working class citizen, is being asked to pay the price with regards to the things that we have to sacrifice and what they have to give up in relation to how this pandemic is being managed. So, those sort of duplicity with respect to the treatment of the management of the pandemic in general. And then you compound that now with this sort of imposition of a vaccine mandate and the way the government again demonstrates its ability to convince this public. You know, when you do the issue of structures, as I mentioned, structures lend to confidence, which is culture. They have not created the culture of confidence in this society, that they have the ability to manage this pandemic. And I think they have recognized that. I think compounded to that is their handling of the entire country, whether it's the economic situation of the citizens, whether it's the issue of the public sector and people who are unemployed. Again, we see the unions. Only today we saw the teachers' union demonstrating that they're going to push back against that. So civil society, we saw individual, again, I want to bring note.
So this man calling people like you and opposition supporters mentally retarded. I want you to comment on that.
Yeah, well. Again, you know, I go back to 5th of May. 5th of May. If you see what the thought of the government is in regards to how people who have opposed them, people who are of a different uh, race, people who are of a different political alignment, people who generally oppose them. You see the attention brought by those in the diaspora to bring attention to how we are viewed, and because of that view, how we are treated. So I think that statement in itself is a reflection of what we see as a treatment to many of the communities that are in support of the opposition, of the coalition. That sort of behavior as a vice president is easy to condemn in an analysis when you look on the other side, but is so easy to do without reflecting how you are perceived with regards. You are actually attacking over 200,000 supporters of the coalition who stood by the coalition and still stand by the coalition. To regard them because they share a different view, which, if you understand international relations, it is the people who supported based on the elections have said in the State Department report that this is an installed government. This is not the opposition making a wild claim. So to regard those people who are in opposition to what the government handling, management, mismanagement of the affairs of the state are as retarded, goes to the point of then how do you see the treatment by this government towards those people that they consider retarded? And I think you cannot take that for granted, and nobody should take that for granted, because this doesn't go only to a certain set of people. This goes to people who, at any point,
they're mentally
choose to oppose the government, even if you're in opposition of the mandate of the vaccine. You may be of somebody who voted for the government, but at any point that you oppose the government, you are then labeled as being retarded, as you just heard from the vice president.
All right, let's bring in Vanessa here to get our thoughts on what Mr. Jagdeo said there about the supporters of the coalition. Vanessa?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hines. Before I comment on that, I want to also bring this to your attention. And I think I heard the General Secretary of the GTU mentioned it. And I'm calling on my teachers. If you are unvaccinated and you cannot enter the compound or the classroom to teach, then you cannot enter the compound or the classroom to ensure it is ready. It is prepared for teaching in September. Yes. All right. So I just want to caution my teachers. Let us, those of us who are unvaccinated, we cannot enter the compound or the classroom to ensure it's ready for teaching, because we cannot enter to go and teach. So I hope that my colleagues are hearing, and I stand with the General Secretary in that we should not go out there if we're unvaccinated to prepare classrooms when we in turn cannot enter there to teach. However, on the point of Jagdeo, whom the gods seek to destroy, they first made mad. And I want to say this to the APNU AFC supporters. I want to call on us to wake up, because you know what? I believe that the same treatment and the way that the PPP supporters behave towards Amanza, we should be in front of Jagdeo's house, in front of his office, wherever he dwells, with our placards. We should be out there letting him know, you understand, because it's past us as a people. And Mr. Solomon alluded or mentioned just now on the 5th, where the president himself, along with some other ministers, made some statements, you understand, about an entire race. And so I want to say to us that we need to ensure we have to respond to these people, you see, and that's the problem, because they keep saying things, they keep doing things, and they're not getting the type of response, because people seem a little relaxed and allowing it to pass. So we need to respond to them, because you know what, like take for instance, in Region 10, under Mr. Solomon's chairmanship, when I was member of parliament, the PPP never entered Region 10 without opposition. They were never welcome. They were never given the chance that they are welcome into this community. And so you have to ensure that these sort of things start happening again. We must not give them that forward, give them that belief. How dare Jagdeo to say that about the APNU AFC supporters? We need to wake up and we need to get out there, because you know what? Like I said, they're going to say, oh, pandemic, oh, COVID, we can't go out and protest. what happened during the elections when foreigners and observers and everybody stormed the GCOM building. They were doing the counts and all of that. Nobody studied COVID then and studied the danger and people getting it. We need to wake up. This government is past us, Dr. Hines, our listening, the viewers, and as a people, we need to respond just the way that Comrade Lincoln Lewis, Comrade Mark Benchcup, Comrade Solomon, and all of them responded on the 5th. We need to, and this time we just don't need to put out statements. We need to get out there. Mr. Jagrio, I pass us. He can dare look at me and tell me I'm mentally, what was it he said, mentally retarded. We should not accept these things. And so we have to send a strong message to this man. Enough is enough, Dr. Hines. I think we as a people, we've been too laid back with these people and these types of statements, because when Amanza Walton Desir said something, the entire supporters of the PPP, in fact, they threatened her life. She felt threatened. And so we need to respond to them in like manner.
Thank you very much, because I see some of the members of the audience said, don't worry, Jack Dio. Here is the thing. Jack Dio feels that we are mentally retarded. Jack Dio has the power to enforce those prejudices. He creates policies. So when they give us less than we deserve, when they steer all the money away from our community, when they lock up our people, it is reflective of that thinking that we are mentally retarded. Jack Dio just told us there what informs his attitude to policy, and we should not dismiss it. I agree with you, Vanessa. We should be up in arms against that, because that is translated into policy. If he were saying that as an ordinary citizen, maybe we can dismiss it. This is a man who is heading the government. This is a man who's making economic policy. And he's saying that half the population is mentally retarded. And we are saying this.
And we cannot read and think for us, Dr. Hines. It's like past us. We must not accept that.
And he used the word mentally and retarded. That's what they thought slaves were. That is why they thought we were natural slaves, because we are mentally retarded. And our community.
And let me say this, Dr. Hines, let me say this. I am calling on Mr. Figueroa, MP Figueroa, and all the other MPs and the regional leaders to come out there. You have to lead this cause. They have to come out there and they have to ensure each one of them, not only, as I said, do a Facebook post or do a live against what Jagdio said. You people need to start getting out there with your placards, and your people will follow you. So I am calling on the members of parliament and those leaders in the different regions, the AP and UAFC leaders. You need to come out and you need to start this thing going. You need to show your supporters and let these people pass us. I'm very upset at what this man said.
And on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about tomorrow and what the expectations are.
You have to test people's basically tolerance, their patience, and basically whether they're mentally retarded, to tell people in this country that they won the elections. Any person who believes that in the face of all the evidence, in the face of the entire international community saying otherwise, in the face of the fact that the SOPs that Lowenfield had and that the PPP had and everyone had showed that the PPP won, but their SOPs never surfaced so far. They can't be made public because Harman is sitting on them like in a nest waiting for them to hatch little eggs, can't get them out before time or else they would spoil, like when you sit on eggs. So that's where the SOPs are. So any person, they're doing documentaries, etc., that would believe that they won the election has to be delusional or mentally retarded. Mentally retarded, because it means they can't think for themselves, they can't read and understand. They're not curious. They listen to stupidity.
Dr. Chan.
This Wednesday, August 25th, be part of history. Be part of the Linden Unity March. We march against discrimination, dictatorship, suppression, racism. We march against forced vaccination. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. The march will culminate at the Linden Martyrs Memorial Site, where conversations will be had. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out. We march on Wednesday, August 25th. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out.
I'm David Hines, political activist and commentator. If you're looking for informed discussion on Guyanese politics, you must join me every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 6:30 on Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines. On that program, I interview policymakers, politicians, political activists on Guyanese politics in the past and the present. So make sure you tune in to Politics 101 on CAMS TV at 6:30 every Tuesday and Thursday. And on Mondays at 7 o'clock in the evening, 7 p.m., you can join me for Hindsight. On that program, I give my take on politics. And then you can call in and talk to me about the politics in Guyana, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. That's Monday evenings at 7 o'clock. And so, here we go. Monday, 7 o'clock, you can join me. On Tuesday at 6:30, Politics 101. On Thursdays at 6:30, Politics 101. And if you haven't gotten enough of me by then, you can catch me on Tuesday mornings on the Buxtonian Morning Time with Kedaki Amsterdam, where we rap about politics also. And that's at 7 o'clock in the morning on CAMS TV. All of these programs are on CAMS TV. So catch me Monday, on Tuesday, on Thursday, and you get all you want to know about Guyanese politics. Welcome back to Politics 101. Yes, starting next week, Monday, we're going to be having a call-in segment of Politics 101. I'm going to give you my take on politics and get you to call in. That's a special request from our viewers to share their views on Politics 101, and I get to share my views. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I get to ask questions. And on Monday evenings, starting next week, I get to give you my take. Tonight, the spotlight is on Linden, and we have three of the community leaders here. MP Drummond Figuera, Vanessa Kisoon, former MP, and Chama Solomon, former Region 10 chairman. Jermaine, for people who may be thinking about coming up to Linden tomorrow, give us some specifics. And
Okay, now before I answer the question, I believe it's important for us to not let the public go away with the view articulated by Jack Yo that our coalition supporters are mentally retarded on the basis that the international community and statements of poll resulted in them being in government. That is not so. They were installed in government on dead people voting, on people living overseas voting. You hear me? Yes, yes, I was saying that they are not in government on legitimate votes. They are in government on dead people voting. They are in government on people living overseas who would have voted. They are in government because of the 47 ballot boxes with no statutory documents that amounted to more than 11,000 votes, and the international community not honoring the four agreements of the national recall. That is why they are installed in government. So they're not in there legitimately on legitimate votes. So that must be made very clear. Now, with respect to the action tomorrow, Vanessa made a very potent point, and I think I must respond to it, where she said that the community leaders must step up, so to speak. That in our exact words, which I agree. And I must state that the community leaders is not restrictive to only elected officials. We have this march that is being planned and executed tomorrow wasn't initiated by the elected officials. It was elected by a community religious leader, someone who saw the need and believed that this is an important cause. And then we had a community buy-in. So there are different facets of leadership in every strata of the society. So I would rather, and that is why I like about this particular organization of this march, where it's a reflection of all of the players in leadership within the community. We have religious leaders, we have union leaders, we have political leaders. But what is most important, and I think the point must be made, is that this particular struggle, it is not political, even though it is a political decision that caused this whole conundrum that the people are reacting to. But this is a people struggle. It is a reflection of a wide cross section of the people of Region 10. And I'm happy about the unity being portrayed there. The interest has been shown by persons all across Guyana who have expressed the view that they are going to come up, and we welcome them because we believe that this demonstration here is a microcosm of the problem that is throughout Guyana, and Linden has always been the cradle of the revolution. I would like to put it. Whatever starts in here has a ripple effect, and I believe that is why the government 2 weeks ago decided that they were going to relax the curfew because they were afraid of the ripple effect that this could have had 2 weeks back with a national response. But the measures are going to be reinforced, as they said after the 25th. That is why we plan the march directly on the 25th, because the people still hold the view that they have the sovereignty over their bodies, and they should make that determination. And they should not be restricted from government services that they are paying for. A pensioner told me, Dr. Hines, that he is so afraid that he has to take a vaccine, because that's what he's hearing, that he has to take a vaccine come pension day to access his pension. Now he's saying this is money that he would have worked for hard for years, and he is entitled to this. Now government is saying to him that he can only access his money if he takes a vaccine that he doesn't want to take. He said he has a lot of underlying health related issues, and he's saying that he's very much concerned. So a lot of issues, a lot of concerns the residents have, and I'm happy that the teachers union is on board, the GPSU is on board, GTUC is on board, the forestry sector arms within Region 10 is also on board, and a number of religious organizations, youth groups are on board. So we have been able to organize this march, and people understand the importance of us demonstrating to give our position very clear, and hopefully that the government will respect the wishes of the people, because essentially the power lies within the people, and the government are elected servants of the people. Now if we have a wide cross section of the society, more than half of this society is saying we have legitimate concerns about forced vaccination. And we're saying to the government, you have to respect our views. Mayor Motley, the former CARICOM chairman, she was spelt with common sense by the Bajan population, and she has taken a different approach. St. Lucia's taken a different approach. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago said school will be open on a virtual platform. So teachers have legitimate concerns, nurses, public servants. Imagine, Dr. Hines, police officers who graduated from the police college were told in order for them to be sworn in as police officers, they have to take the vaccine. Young women afraid because of the allegations about the risks of them being infertile because of them taking the vaccine. Now we don't I don't I'm not a scientist. I don't know the truth behind those allegations, but I believe it warrants some degree of restraint of people wanting to take this vaccine. And Vanessa was rightfully correct when she said that the education program and the strategy that the government has implemented as a result of this pandemic, they have badly handled it. And that is why the population is so hesitant to take these vaccines. Sputnik, for example, the government bought Sputnik vaccine that wasn't approved by the WHO, and more so the money in which it was purchased. And these are the legitimate concerns people have. Imagine you are buying Sputnik vaccine in such a large quantity, knowing the data of how the population is being vaccinated on a daily basis, and you went and you purchased vaccine far beyond the daily vaccination nationally, knowing that the short time that this vaccine was going to expire. So we had vaccines, thousands of vaccines expired in July, thousands expired on the 1st of August. So millions of taxpayers' money the government would have wasted. And these are legitimate concerns that the people have. And we are saying, as a community, as a people, that we are going out there to demonstrate, and we are appealing to the residents who are going to come out there to understand that one, COVID is real. They have to observe the COVID protocols. We are asking for disciplined action, and we are going to culminate this march at the Linden Martyrs Monument, which is the epitome of the resistance that the Linden people took in 2012. And this is another stage of our demonstration. And we're asking for a disciplined response, but more so, we are going to make our voices be heard, and we're going to be resolute in our stance that we are against forced vaccination. We are against the government's dictatorial approach to deny public servants the right to access government services that they are paying for, and more so, the draconian measures of government to say that you have to go to a private institution to do these different COVID tests when they were doing these same tests at the institutions. The hospitals right here in Linden were offering the tests. Why now persons have to go and pay for these results? It's totally a money making thing in my view, and the government has no interest about the needs and the wants and desires of the people. We are saying the people have total sovereignty over their bodies, and the government must respect that. If I may, the locations we are starting the march at the Bayrock Junction. So all of the communities from Bayrock coming down the Winifred Gaskin Highway to the Linden Martyrs Monument are asked to join the procession. We're starting at Christianburg at the Water Wheel area there. All the communities that borders Burnham Drive are asked to join the march as we go along, as well as those from Mackenzie. They're starting at the Five Corner area, and we're asking all residents to join this worthy cause. This is about the people, and we're asking all of us to come out and to send a resounding voice that is clear to the government to understand that the people of Region 10, the people of Linden will stand resolute in defense of their rights to choose whatever goes into their bodies or not.
And of course, other related issues, the high cost of living, the harassment of people at GCOM, the knocking off of hundreds of opposition supporters, the little handouts that they're giving in place of a structured cash transfer that we demanded more than 2 years ago, the assault on Black businesses, the lack of proper infrastructure and maintenance of infrastructure in our communities. Linking all of those, using the occasion to bring to bear our collective and our broad concerns about our country. At the end of the day, it is the same dictatorship on the vaccine. It is the same dictatorship we have on the economy. The giving away of billions to businessmen and women who are affiliated with the government while giving the working people a pittance. All of those issues arise from the same place. Hopefully, we send a message tomorrow that we are not mentally retarded. Shama Solomon, what lessons, and I'm putting this to both you and Vanessa, what lessons can we learn today from the struggles of 2012?
So I would like to even recognize the efforts to get as much people involved. So I open by saying, let me recognize the program would have been a bit richer with the presence of a Nigel London. Why I made that point?
You get Nigel on. I
hear that. I'm really.
I wanted to hear from you all in Linden.
Yes, because that is where the energy comes from. That's the point I'm making. That the energy comes from individuals that are prepared, not necessarily only in the role of leadership, but individuals who recognize that there is a level of injustice within our society. And you made the point, as you referenced just now, Doc, which even though we are seeing the issue of mandatory vaccine and we are seeing the issue of discriminatory practices by the PDP government, there are many other issues that have now become a center of attention, the center of attention with regards to people's resistance. So what you're actually seeing for tomorrow, and I believe what is a reflection of what Linden is demonstrating and coming out of individuals that you see have shown that level of resistance, is that they're prepared to stay resolute. If you can recognize over the year that the government has been in place, Linden has been in a bombardment of uh, issues that have affected them, from the issues of unemployment to the distribution of equitable resources. So people are not necessarily only of one issue that they're prepared to come to represent, as you see tomorrow's demonstration to be. So the lessons you're learning is that uh, indigenous to this community, you can find people who are prepared to rise up against issues that they feel that are not within their best interests. They're prepared to rise up against issues that don't allow their voices to be a part of the decision-making process, which are all constitutional. And for those reasons, you can then see people who are prepared to come together at a point to say to the leadership or the government that they're not going to stand for the sort of behavior that we recognize from this government with regards to the general treatment. So um, I like the idea that this is not only a reflection of a particular matter, but it is a reflection of the treatment, the general treatment of this community. As I made mention to the nurses earlier, while everyone else in Guyana was objecting to the treatment of healthcare workers, we had our healthcare workers and sick patients in a manufactured crisis being locked out of our community. Now, that requires a level of motivation from every member of this community to say that that is not just a level of injustice, but it is a level of treatment that is undeserving, that the community should say, hey, not 2 weeks, you've made a decision that has put us in a position that we are not going to stand for your general treatment. So 2012 is not only a replica of what you see now. I think it's an attitude that is reflective of people in this community that identifies with injustice and how they respond to it generally. Whether it's mandatory vaccine, whether it's the issue of job creation, people are unemployed in this community and are being made more unemployed with this sort of behavior by the government. So those are issues that you'll see certainly playing out. I think it's commendable that you have other voices that are ensuring that they are participating in these calls for social justice, for their involvement in the decision-making process. I know Mr. Soon was adamant that we have to get more done. We saw that our nurses in the early part of April and the early part of the year needed to be supported. We have to bring that support. And I'm encouraged, as MP Figueroa is saying, that we are now finding the sort of means to give that support. So we look forward for tomorrow, and we hope that in observance of the protocols of COVID, that sort of hypocrisy that we are witnessing, where 600 could assemble in quarantine posts and not be labeled as being part responsible for the spread of COVID. 500 could have assembled for house lots in Linden last month in July. Uh, we had the teachers in the cash grant and so many hundreds assembling, pushing the numbers up in Linden, and you're not making note of that fact, and you're making note of the fact that people are coming out to oppose you. And when opposition is there for you, what do you call those people? Mentally retarded. So those are things that are now issues that bring people to a point of of realization, as you said. It is not somebody who is a wanderer that made this point. This is a policy maker that made that point. And I think people have now a right to stand against those sort of decisions that we see being made. So commendable to the organizers, and I think tomorrow we look forward. We look forward.
As someone who was integrally part of the 2012 uprising, any lessons learned from there? Any connection that you see between the two interventions? You have to unmute, I think.
Oh.
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Take that one. Okay, you hearing me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, right. Thank you. First of all, let me say, MP Figueroa, I was talking specifically about the statement that was made by Jagdeo. When I call on the leaders, it's not about the tomorrow activity and so on, but I'm talking specifically about the statement that he made. That's what I'm talking about. We need to see you guys, refuting and rebutting and getting out there against that as MPs and, parliamentarians and regional leaders. And you all know that you have our support. First of all, let me say I'd like to congratulate Apostle Nigel London for taking that individual stand. Days out in the streets, going into communities. Also, I notice, and like I said earlier, education. People need to be educated. Let me also say that myself, I know the Friday we were out here in Linden, teachers, mothers. I think that day, Apostle London, they were in Georgetown. Well, we weren't aware that they were going to be in town, but we were up here, giving them that support. The last Wednesday when we had that blocking of the bridge, I also like to point out and to say to those women, mothers, and we had a few men who came out and stood on that bridge, and others started to join. We went there and we stayed on that bridge. I know MP Figueroa know that I was out there, even until the very end, the night when everything was being negotiated and so on. We were there giving our support to the struggle. And I really want to commend Apostle Nigel London. And like MP said earlier, the community has levels of leaders. And so we need to see all on board. Like 2012, we had all the different divides across the board. They were all out there, whether it's religious leaders, political leaders, elected leaders, mothers were out there, women. And I know that tonight I want to say, because I know our women, we normally, and I say we, because I be out there with my women, we're always out there giving that support to the struggles of Linden. And to say, that lots of times it is the unity. And like I said, I do congratulate Apostle London and team. I also want to commend the committee who planning and putting things in order for tomorrow. But I want to say to the people of not just Linden and Region 10, and I want to say to the people of Guyana, Dr. Hines and colleagues, panelists, that in unity is strength. And I want us to be very, very careful of what this government is doing. Because if you read a statement that was put out by the Minister of Health, where he said, I can't remember the exact word, but what stuck with me is that it's unfortunate we having the unvaccinated mingling with the vaccinated. And we're putting they in fact are putting us against us. They're putting us against us in the communities. They're putting us against us in the workplace. They're putting us against us in our homes. Because I want to make this point, when you will have homes where you have persons who are vaccinated, persons who are unvaccinated. You might have parents who are vaccinated, but I have a choice as an individual. I'm a woman now. I'm not a teenager where my mom can say to me, you have to take a vaccine, right? And so where you have these persons dwelling in one home, and to say that it's unfortunate to have the vaccinated mingling with the unvaccinated, when it is proven that persons who are fully, not just with the first dose, but persons who are fully vaccinated, both doses, contracting the virus also, where you cannot trace who would have given it to who, or where you would have picked, who pick it up where. There's no trace with that. So to say and to go out there and preach as if the unvaccinated persons are a threat to those that are vaccinated, we have to be very careful in what we're doing. And we as a people have to be very careful, and we have to read the subtle message that this government, because as was said by this wild man, this man Jagbio, that we are mentally retarded and we can't read and write for ourselves. These are the things that we need to zoom in on. And I want to remind my fellow Lindeners, Region 10ers, I'll say that on the show tonight. But I want to remind us of the fact that in 2012, it was unity. We stood as a people. We stood as one. All right, we went out there for one cause, and not because you might be vaccinated, either your first dose or you've been fully vaccinated, that you should not be a part of this struggle. Because I want to say, like I'm saying, and I'm bringing as a teacher, if you're saying to teachers it's okay as an unvaccinated teacher to go and prepare the classroom, and when you go and prepare the classroom as an unvaccinated teacher, you cannot go and teach as an unvaccinated teacher, and then you're telling those teachers who are vaccinated, it's unfortunate, don't mingle with your unvaccinated colleagues. Then we have now where parents are asking a lot of questions. I haven't heard anyone saying this, but parents are in WhatsApp groups asking questions, and like I said earlier, have concerns. Some children, they're saying their children are asthmatic, children have different medical issues, and I cannot answer those questions, Dr. Hines. I cannot say to a parent, oh, your child is asthmatic, he or she cannot or should not take a vaccine. And this is where I'm saying the education is important. People have concerns. It is not that people are anti-vaccine, we don't want to take vaccines, but you have to understand people's concerns. Now, teachers are being asked these questions. Who do we direct it to? And then you cannot just say to me now that I have to go once a week to only these places that the Ministry of Education or Health is saying that only these 3 places, and these places are private places, who I'm sure, and we must check, these are things we have to look into. Are these persons fully supporters of the PPP, that they're saying only these private places we must go to do our PCR, paying 20,000 or how much every week? Teachers don't get all that money. Where are we going to find that? Listen, this government is creating, you understand, further division in this country, further division among our people, and we need to wake up. You understand? I'm calling on my mothers. I'm calling on the women. I'm calling on the fathers. I'm calling on the leaders, whether you're a political elected, you're a religious, whatever capacity, because even as women, we're leaders. We're in our homes. Some of us are single moms. We are leading our homes. We have a say. And let us not pass on this opportunity, because now look what is happening. We're being told we're mentally retarded. We can't read and write for ourselves. My people, tonight I want to call on us. I will say this, I might sound a little radical, but we need to wake up. And I want to say, as you mentioned, Dr. Hines, what lesson was learned from 2012? In unity, there is strength. I repeat that, in unity, there is strength. And so we need to ensure that when we go out there, we go with one voice, We go as one people, we're one nation, and we have one destiny to accomplish.
And the point well taken, I've said over and over again, do not allow this COVID vaccine issue to divide us. The one thing, we may have different views on whether the vaccine works or it doesn't work, but the one thing we ought to be united on, that is that this government must not use the vaccine as a means of dictating to us against our will. That is what we are united on, and that should always be at the front of our discourses. We have people in the Black community and supporters of the APNU, AFC. Some of them are against the vaccine. Some of them are against it, but will take it under certain conditions. Some of us have already taken it. So we are a diverse group. But what we ought to be united on is that this government must not treat us as slaves who are mentally retarded according to them and try to use the vaccine to beat us on our heads. That we ought to say no to and to push back against it. And the same thinking that goes in to dictating to us on the vaccine, it is the same thinking that goes into economic policy, that goes into what they're doing at GCOM, that goes in what they're doing to the economy, that goes into giving the bulk of the relief to their rich friends and giving us a pittance. It is the same thinking. So as we rally tomorrow, let us rally against a thinking on the part of the government. Because at the end of the day, they're driven by this notion that we are inferior. I want to stress that. Because when I say it, when Eric Phillips say it, when Lincoln Lewis say it, when Mark Benshaw say it, they say we racist. When Dr. Yost say it for himself, he says that he believes Black people are mentally retarded. And so we've got to push back against that, because that is at the root of everything else that they're doing to us in that country. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, closing statements.
This Wednesday, August 25th, be part of history. Be part of the Linden Unity March. We march against discrimination, dictatorship, suppression, racism. We march against forced vaccination. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. The march will culminate at the Linden Martyrs Memorial Site, where conversations will be had. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out. We march on Wednesday, August 25th. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out.
I'm David Hines, political activist and commentator. If you're looking for informed discussion on Guyanese politics, you must join me every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 6:30 on Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines. On that program, I interview policymakers, politicians, political activists on Guyanese politics in the past and the present. So make sure you tune in to Politics 101 on CAMS TV at 6:30 every Tuesday and Thursday. And on Mondays at 7 o'clock in the evening, 7 p.m., you can join me for hindsight. On that program, I give my take on politics. And then you can call in and talk to me about the politics in Guyana, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world. That's Monday evenings at 7 o'clock. And so here we go. Monday, 7 o'clock, you can join me. On Tuesday at 6:30, Politics 101. On Thursdays at 6:30, Politics 101. And if you haven't gotten enough of me by then, you can catch me on Tuesday mornings on the Buxtonian Morning Time with Kedati Amsterdam, where we rap about politics also. And that's at 7 o'clock in the morning on Hams TV. All of these programs are on Hams TV. So catch me Monday, on Tuesday, on Thursday, and you get all you want to know about Chinese politics. And welcome back to Politics 101. We've been talking tonight about Linden, the Sportlight on Linden, because tomorrow they're going to be rallying in defense of their dignity, in defense of their right to be full citizens of Guyana and the world, in defense of their right to resist against government mandates. We're in the 21st century, and we have entered the third decade. And this time, not a long time, this time, not day before time, we're not taking orders. Some of us believe that we must do everything possible to protect ourselves against the COVID-19 disease. But in the process of doing so, we must not give up our liberty. One, always in politics, you balance freedom and order. You cannot have order at the expense of freedom, but you also cannot have freedom at the expense of order. And any government and any political leader worth his or her salt must be saying to our people, balance freedom with order. This government wants to use order at the expense of freedom. Our foreparents did not endure 2 centuries of enslavement, did not fight to come out of that plantation in order to give up our freedom. Yes, we have to collectively push back against the pandemic. But we must not give up what we have fought for and won in this country. And so therefore, come out tomorrow. Those of you who are in Linden, come out and use what you have. All we have are ourselves, our unity. And we may have come out of that plantation without much, but I can assure you we came out with our dignity. It was that dignity that led us to buy lands and to create villages and to humanize Guyana so that other people could come and live as human beings, free human beings. And so as we go to rally tomorrow, we are rallying to protect what our foreparents fought for and left with us, the legacy of resistance. We don't have guns, we don't have bombs, we don't have police forces, we don't have army. What we have are our bodies, our minds. We are not mentally retarded. We have our minds, our intellect, and our voices. Let us raise them so that those far and wide can hear us. A US congressman stood up in Brooklyn and said, The Guyana government is practicing racism. Our voices were muted. Now that somebody said it far away, we must say it loud and clear tomorrow. We're a black people, among other things. And if we want to turn our blacknesses into inferiority, we will use our blackness to free ourselves from your imposed shackles. We've got to raise our voices. We have to be righteously indignant. We have to be radical. Because when you are faced with radical evil, you can only meet that with radical good. So tomorrow is another chance for us to show our solidarity. Closing statements, I start with you, Jermaine.
Beautiful. Let me take this opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your platform and to engage this. Tomorrow is indeed an opportunity for us to demonstrate unity. Tesoro would have indicated the importance of unity. Our ancestors, as you know, Doc, who Barjag you might would have want to describe as mentally retarded, understood the importance of unity. And as a result of that understanding, they pooled their resources together, their shillings, their pennies, their dollars, whatever it is they had, and bought villages. And they were illiterate. We today, in today's society, this 21st century, are more educated, and therefore we must have more knowledge and know-how and a greater understanding of what it is to unite as a people. Because if our ancestors, who didn't know as much as we know now, were able to understand the power of what unity could achieve, then it's the onus is now upon us as the heirs of our ancestors to demonstrate even better, being more educated and more knowledgeable, and demonstrate real power of what unity can achieve. So I'm saying to all of us to understand and to awaken the consciousness that you have within you to understand that there's power in unity, there's power in the people, and you have to accept the effervescent fact that the elected officials are servants of you. You are their masters. And therefore, you must make your demands known very clearly and stand resolute to ensure that those elected servants honor your wishes. I'd like to thank Apostle London for being the catalyst, for being the spark of this march that we are having tomorrow, that we are going to be coming out as a people, as a collective, with one unified message, one unified stance in defense of our rights. And I hope that this also spark in all other residents in this community and wider fields in Guyana the right that you have as an individual to stand up against any authority, any organization, any government who has shown an unjust or would have done an unjust act towards you or your fellow countrymen and women. So I'm asking all of us to awaken that consciousness within us and let us understand the power of unity. Too many petty things divide us as a people. Let us focus our energies in bringing everybody together, and that is what we endeavor to do with this march. We have reached out to all of the community leaders. We have tomorrow Apostle London, Sir Thomas, Jafar, Sharma Salmon, Vanessa Kissoon, a lot of the community activists and leaders who we believe um, are influencers, are leaders in their own right within this region, within Linden, to come out and show solidarity, show support for this worthy cause. And if the government doesn't relent on this position that they are trying to enforce on us, we are going to organize even better again, and we are going to maximize the support base within the region to a much larger extent. And hopefully, if they continue to resist, we will take this demonstration countrywide, because there is unity and strength, and this action affects all of us, what the government is attempting to do. This has nothing to do with party affiliation. It has, because Indian people who support the PVP are affected by this draconian dictatorial position taken by this administration. People's livelihood are being threatened, and we are saying we will not stand as a people and remain silent. We must speak out. We must stand resolute. We must stand firm. And I believe if we stand as a united people, Black, Indian, Chinese, all Guyanese who are in opposition to this dictatorial approach by the government, you are in our arms, and we say, let us march as a people together tomorrow. We want a disciplined people tomorrow, Dr. Hines, and we will speak to them, and I believe they will respond in a positive way. So once again, thank you for this opportunity.
Your closing thoughts? Shama Solomon?
Hi, yes, Doc.
Closing
Thanks
thoughts?
for having me on the program. Let me also say it was good to share the platform with the fellow guests. But just before I close on the event tomorrow, let me just note that as a man thinketh, so is he. If someone think that you're mentally lazy or mentally retarded, in fact, this is the quote of the vice president, the exact quote. Somebody can think that you're mentally retarded and believe that you're mentally retarded. I think it's only a matter of time before they act out the thoughts of their mind and treat and do to the people that they believe that are mentally retarded the sort of things that you see reflected in the policies of this government. Um, and that is in a reflection to half the population shows opposing views to the general handling of this government during this pandemic on many issues. And it is not only the handling of the establishment of the structures to begin with that deals with this pandemic, such as the task force, but on many issues such as how they're treating the enforcement, how they're handling the people who are affected the most with regards to the sort of policies that they're enacting. And then you have now the issue of the mandate of vaccination and how that is being dealt with. So that in itself is a reflection of some government who does not believe, and this is a reflection that is in uh, the what this government believes in over the years that we've witnessed them in action, that they don't have to be accountable to anyone who opposes with views that they don't share. So whether it's on the issue of vaccine, and I see they're making it an anti-vax demonstration, I think that was very clear, and I'm encouraged that it was cleared up, that it's to deal with the behavior of how these mandates are being enforced and enacted that people are opposed to. Um, and I am encouraged that we have other vices that are now getting involved in the process of ensuring that they too are prepared to show the sort of leadership that Region 10 and Linden is accustomed to, with reference to the sort of identification of injustice. As we know, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I believe the people of Guyana, they too can identify with the struggles of Region 10. They too can appreciate just what we are representing, whether that is discrimination in resources and how they're distributed, whether that is vaccine mandate, whether that is a class of people or a race of people taking their grievances all the way to the diaspora. This community encompasses all of those concerns. And I believe reflected in what you're seeing in terms of the organization of the event is in itself an appreciation of people attitude gravitating towards addressing those concerns. So I am encouraged by the invite to the event, to the organizers. As was mentioned earlier, there is an effort to have other voices to be involved, and I'm encouraged by that. And we look forward to having the sort of support and the discipline participation of the rest of the community.
Vanessa, you have the last word.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for inviting me, and I must say it's indeed a pleasure sharing the platform with you gentlemen. I want to say, for to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Nelson Mandela. I also want to remind us with my quote that I opened with from the famous Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which we can use to change the world. And because of what was said by the Vice President Jagdeo, we have to ensure that we educate our people. I want to say tonight, before I leave, the PPP feels that, especially because it's Linden in the spotlight, Region 10 in the spotlight, they feel because they think they got a victory when they mistreated our nurses. And so they feel now that they can come and say and do anything to us and we will just accept it. I want to remind the PPP that Linden and Region 10, we're a force to reckon with. And let them not feel that they can come here and do as they please. You can do what you want, but not for as long as you want. The people will resist you. I would also like to say that we are against mandatory vaccines. We're against it. We are saying, just like we had a choice whether we wanted to swallow those filaria pills, we wanted to drink them or not, we would like to have that same choice. Our bodies, our choice. We would like to have that choice. The same way we have a choice of which party we support, the same way we would like to have that choice of whether we would like to take the vaccine or not. Or also, like I said earlier, and I will keep pressing this, educate the people. I want to also say, I believe as a woman of God, as a Christian, that the tool, the weapon that God gave us is the power of choice. The most important weapon or tool is the power of choice. And I want to say to the PPP, allow us the right to that choice and power of choice. I want to say also to my people, the people of Linden and Region 10, people of Guyana, I want to say to us that the people who forget their past is bound to repeat it. And when you have someone sitting in a position as Jagdeo, and to say to a people that they're mentally retarded, and say also that it means they cannot read and think for them, comprehend for themselves, It's a dangerous thing. It means that those people are seeing us. They believe they will take us back to slavery. I want us to wake up. Let us not take that statement lightly. I am calling on all of us. Let us not take that statement lightly. Because when people can look at you and tell you, it's as telling me as a teacher, I've been through the therapeutical, I've educated myself, I'm a trained teacher, I'm a teacher by profession, and you're saying to me, I am mentally retarded. It's a dangerous thing. And I'm calling on all Guyanese. We must speak out against it, and we must send a strong message against it. I also like to encourage us tomorrow. Let us go out there and let us voice our concerns. Let us let this government know. And as was said by everyone else, it's not a case that we're against vaccines. They're just being political. They're just trying to use that to twist it and turn it and all of that. It's that we're against mandatory vaccines. And we have a choice, and we should be given that right to exercise that choice. And before I leave, I want to say to us as a people, not just Linden and Region 10, I want to say to all Guyanese, in unity, there is strength. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you very much for having me once again, Dr. Hines.
I want to thank you, Vanessa, for coming on. Thank Shama Solomon and Jermaine for coming on to the program. You certainly have enriched our evening, and we look forward to tomorrow when the people of Linden will join you in saying no to this government, no to dictatorship, no to imposition. Good night to the audience, and those of you who can be there tomorrow, be there tomorrow. Those of you who can be there in body, be there in spirit. Of course, I'm sure they're going to carry it live. Make sure you follow what's going on. And the word is that we're not retarded. We freed the world. We are the conscience of the world. Because as we lift ourselves, we lift others. Good night. And on Thursday, we're going to talk more about this.
This Wednesday, August 25th, be part of history. Be part of the Linden Unity March. We march against discrimination, dictatorship, suppression, racism. We march against forced vaccination. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. The march will culminate at the Linden Martyrs Memorial Site, where conversations will be had. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out. We march on Wednesday, August 25th. We assemble at 10 a.m. at 3 different locations. The Five Corners at Mackenzie, the Water Wheel at Christiansburg, the Bayrock Junction in Wismar. Linden, put on your shoes and come on out.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.